Okay. Just wait for some people to show up and we'll get started. Okay, so get started here in just a minute. Just kind of want to let some people come in, say hello. Tell me what you thought of the book, which today we are talking about N.K. Jemisin's The Broken Kingdoms. This is book 2 in the Inheritance Trilogy. Just a little caveat, this live show will contain some spoilers in terms of the contents of book 1, which was called The 100,000 Kingdoms. So if you have not read that book, please make sure to move away from this until you've read it, because I would hate for there to be any spoilers on that would ruin the series for you. I want to be able to talk freely and openly about this series since we are now working on the second book in this series. So for those of you that don't know, I have been doing an N.K. Jemisin read-along for the majority of 2023 so far, and will continue to do so for the rest of the year. And basically that every month we read at least one book, maybe more depending on the length of them. And like I said, today we're doing The Broken Kingdoms, which is one of the first series that NK, I think, wrote. I think it may have been her debut series, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but at the very least, I know that this is one of the most beloved series of hers besides the Broken Earth trilogy. And so I knew that when doing this, I wanted to spend the first 6 or so months of the year focusing on the books that people really seem to like, which then also included the graphic novel of Far Sector. And then the second half of the year would be dedicated to a little bit lesser known works of hers or books that were not as favored, because I wanted to kind of see what it was about the things that people loved about her books, and then what is it that they don't care so much for them. So if you haven't joined us before, I highly, recommend you do so. I think it's going to be really fun. But yeah, so I guess with that, we'll kind of get into this. I don't know. I feel a little off today. Had kind of a very exhausting couple of days with work. So give everybody a couple more minutes to trickle on in. And if you're here, say hello. Tell me how you liked the Broken Kingdoms. Tell me how you enjoyed it, especially compared to the 100,000 Kingdoms if you've read it. And yeah, we'll kind of get started on the discussion here in a couple minutes. So, basically, going forward, what we will be doing is in June this month, we are going to be reading the third and final book in the Inheritance Trilogy, which is The Kingdom of Gods. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Inheritance Trilogy kind of has it more set up as companion novels where they're placed in different points of a timeline. And book 2 is 10 years after the events of book 1. And from what I understand, book 3 is much further on, and we'll talk about the synopsis when we get to it. And we'll dive into some theories, some ideas that we may have going into book 3. Although it is in a different timeline, I don't know necessarily what is to be theorized, because I feel like we're almost going into a completely new story. So, yeah, just kind of waiting for more people to come in, say hi, and kind of get started from there, I guess. Hi, Jira. Hello. Finally, somebody showed up. I'm 5 minutes in, and you're the first person to actually say hello. Hi. I was starting to get scared there for a second. I was getting really worried there, honestly, that nobody was going to come hang out with me today, and I was going to be really sad. But no, hey, how did you, I know we talked yesterday kind of at Brandy Sprints, but I know you gave it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and you really liked the ending more so than the rest of it. I want to say maybe it wasn't a 4.5 stars. It was like the ending was a 4.5. I don't remember. My brain is not working apparently today. But yeah, so I guess let's kind of get started. Might as well. So basically, the Broken Kingdoms delves into the story of Orishoth. Now, this is, like I said, placed 10 years after the events of the 100,000 Kingdoms. And Orishoth is a blind young woman. Kept refreshing, but your live wasn't showing up. Never got the notification. Oh no! I'm sorry. I don't understand what's wrong with YouTube. I don't know why it doesn't push out notifications half the time. It's dumb. But anyway, so Orishoth, she is a blind artist, and she is a really good artist, though, despite that. Now, she is in particular a blind person where she cannot really see any person. She can kind of see shadows. She can kind of see silhouettes. She can't really make out anything. But things that she can really make out is when kind of like she is in contact with a specific energy force that is from the godlings and the gods. So basically the magic that is involved in the godlings and the gods, she is able to see. She's able to kind of like recognize that is something that is a godling or a god. Now, this was something we learn early on that her father was also able to do. And in the very beginning of the novel, we learn that Ori's father was killed in a really catastrophic kind of event. And it kind of catapulted her into leaving home and starting life on her own. And essentially, it brought about kind of this point of contention for her in some ways, because she went out on her own, figuring out, herself and all these things, but she never really got to understand what it was that she was able to do. She doesn't understand why she's able to see this magic, anything like that. And we learned that at some point in her time between the prologue of the book and essentially what we know is the beginning of the story is that she had been involved with a godling named Matting, who he is kind of a guy. I keep thinking about the guy that's in Far Sector, the one official that Sojourner ends up kind of hooking up with at some point. I kind of feel like he's got that same kind of vibe to Matting. And you learn that they basically had a very intense romantic relationship, despite the fact that it probably wasn't necessarily looked well upon in terms of the godlings and everything. And so eventually he had broken it off because of the fact that she was going to end up, living and then getting older and dying, whereas he would very likely continue to live. Kind of that entire idea of immortality being like unable to have actual romantic and long-lasting relationships and, meaningful relationships. And then we learn that Ori also is basically helping a older man who essentially she found as homeless. She found this man on the side of the street when walking home, and she knows that he's got some kind of godlike ability. She doesn't know who he is. He has not told her his name. He doesn't speak to her. And so in the book, she decides to call him Shiny because the coloring that is coming off of him that she is able to see is shiny. And so she calls him that. And after basically patching up Shiny, after a very, self-mutilating scene that had happened with Shiny, as there is some kind of destructive power within him that, manifests in it hurting himself. So after patching him up, she takes him the next day to essentially the artist's market that she's a part of. And that is kind of where our big plot happens, where we find out that there's been a murder of a godling. And this is absolutely out of the norm because the only people who are able to kill godlings are either their parents or their siblings, if their siblings are powerful enough. So obviously, something has happened to these godlings, and it is really terrifying for the other godlings because they believe that the more mortal based humans are somehow behind it. And one of the first people that they start targeting is Ori, because they understand that she has some odd abilities. She's really close with the godlings, with several of them. And you learn a little bit of her backstory and how she met Matting and several of the other godlings around throughout parts of the story. But they start targeting her because also Shiny, when Ori is kind of being attacked by a man that is considered like a priest of a Tempest, who a Tempest being the god, the All Father that we learned about in the 100,000 Kingdoms. When Shiny basically sees Ori being practically attacked by this priest, he goes ballistic and attacks this priest. And then there is an all-out manhunt. They capture Shiny, and Shiny is then taken away. And so Ori enlists then Matting to try to help her to get him back and figure out what the heck's gone on. And throughout the entirety of the book, it is nothing but learning about conspiracies and cults and basically people that are looking to bring down the gods. And it's a very, very interesting look, I think, in the way that when you have religious fanatics, I think in a lot of ways, this book really talks about the differences in terms of those that are, religious fanatics in the sense that they live by a certain code that they believe is being told by God, almost like, you're following the Bible kind of thing. And then on the flip side of that, you have this cult that essentially is almost going against a lot of what is being done, and they are trying to build a world that is going to be different because they believe that that is the best way that things are to go. So I really appreciate how that whole conversation was kind of brought up within this story, and how we got to see really Ori see both sides of it, because at one point she does get captured by this cult, and they do think that she is somebody who can help them, because you learn that part of the reason she has this power is that she is half demon, and the only way that that would be able to happen is if she was born of a demon. So it turns out her dad was a demon and something along those lines. So essentially she's learning about this kind of thing, and we learn that the whole reason that the godlings are even dying in the first place is because somebody has been taking demon blood and poisoning the godlings, because demon blood is basically able to tamper down their strength and their magic, and so then they're more vulnerable and easier to kill. So essentially they want to use Ori as kind of like their own personal demon blood supply and use it to kill off the gods, which is something where she's kind of like hit or miss with. Hi.
Sorry, I didn't
No,
hear the notification.
it's okay. You're fine. I just kind of was waiting to get started. I got scared because I thought nobody was going to show up. Really wanted to DNF initially. Wasn't her writing, just wasn't getting the point until the last third of the book took off. Typical Jemisin. Yeah, I think this one, for me, it picked up a lot quicker than it did the 100,000 Kingdoms. But I do understand, like, that whole middle section. It's a lot of like not really knowing what the heck's going on, and then when you get to the whole idea of what the cult is really doing, it's way more interesting. And then ultimately the final ending of this book, where we learn that Ori has been telling this entire story to her unborn child, is amazing. Just I loved it. I love that so much.
First of all, NK needs her props, okay? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with the whole, okay, get to the point, let some action happen,
Mm-hmm.
I think overall the premise of the book is to just really follow the god and really just see how they stripped him of power,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't hear a lot about him in the first book, or get to see his perspective and on what he's, what's happening. So, yeah,
Yeah.
just NK fashions, similar NK fashion where things just like, you just following a journey. And it's like, okay, boom,
Right.
at the end. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's an interesting point too, is that it's not only talking about, the different aspects of, types of followers or non-followers in any kind of religion where there's gods involved. I also really liked this idea of really seeing Shiny or a Tempest essentially
Tempest.
in a very different light. I think one of the things I had mentioned in my vlog was that I really appreciated how, from Ori's perspective, we got to really see Shiny or a Tempest as he was, like as a person, stripped of his power, stripped of his godlike abilities. We got to see him as an individual and how much pain he had gone through, the struggles he's dealt with as a god. And while it doesn't excuse everything he's done and all the things that he did that led to ultimately his being sent away as a human and forced to live in the human world for a time, it really kind of, I think, it humanized him. It really gave you an understanding of the fact that there's more to somebody than just one side. And I think that in the 100,000 Kingdoms, we only really got one side of what a Tempest was supposedly. And that was that he was an awful dad and that he slept with all of his kids and his kids' kids. And it's like, what?
NK was horrible for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get into, I'm sure we'll get into the details of like the story itself, but really for those who did not enjoy the book, I mean, really just sit with the fact that the light and dark, right? NK always wants you, in her books that I've read, she always wants you to have this balance. It's not something that she's going to provide to you. She gives you hints and nuggets and you have to come up with the conclusion yourself, but it really is that balance of like, you know, light and dark, the good, the bad, and seeing if you can take someone who was designed, or not necessarily, well, yes, he is the bad side of the three gods, but he is the evil side, in essentially, and seeing if you can strip him of all power and being, and can he love humanity that he helped build. And that's in K. Jemison's book. I don't think I've read one that didn't have that aspect of like the good, the bad. But she's not going to spoon feed you any of the information throughout the book itself and the concept of it. And that's what I love about N.K. Jemisin. But yeah, Tempest is, you really get to see him at his low, and you really get to see him just in normal human ways, right? Just like working and eating and cooking. And I mean, like, these are things that they weren't doing in the first book, right? They were being used as pawns, essentially. They did their bidding, and rather than now he's like having to live a normal life that he's not used to having to live. And so I found, he was able to find his humanity in this book. And I think that there was parts of it was like, oh God, come on, okay, we get it, he dies, he glows, like but you really got to see him as him and not as this powerful being, and I love that. So
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that that's a really great way of like just explaining his entire character in general. So,
hey G-Man, thanks for sending me because I was asleep.
Hi, Lisies.
8 o'clock Central. I just always have, I do this with Brandy all the time. Like, she'll say a time and I forget to convert it to my time. And I'm like, yeah. Anyway.
That's okay. It happens. Most of her characters are on the morally gray spectrum. I'll reread the book again this month before I read the third. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just took me a long time to get into it. The first book, I was all in from the first page. See, and I was at first, and then it lost me for the first book for a minute. This one, it was okay, and then okay, and then I lost it a little bit, and then I was like, okay. So,
And then it was like,
yeah, but yeah, by the ultimate end, I was bawling my eyes out, realizing that Ori was talking to her child about
oh God.
just. Mm.
You know,
So
I love the fact that Ori, who was this beautiful, beautiful woman, blind with these, you know, heinous eyes, as they would say, you know, like they didn't use that word, but they used it like, you know, as scary, right? When she closed her eyes, she was beautiful. And someone like her who is disabled or whatever the case may be, did not necessarily have any intention of living a life with a companion, end up having a child like that at the end. I was just like, I was not expecting it. I just wasn't. So
well, and not only that, but I just love the fact that even though she was blind, it didn't hold her back in any way. And I appreciate that NK really brought that up, because I think a lot of people misunderstand the fact that just because you have a disability, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, whatever the case may be, you still can live a fairly functional life, whether through, you know, your own means or by help with other people. Like, you can still be a living human being and do things and explore and all these things, because you're still able to do some things, if not, and even if you're completely wheelchair bound,
absolutely.
you can still, you know, be involved in things. And I just love that for Ori, it wasn't just that she was blind, but she was also an artist, and she was this very sweet woman, and she was caring, and she literally took in a man off the street she didn't know and let him live with her for 3 months while he never said a word, and then was pretty much cool with the fact that he was a god from the get-go. Like, she was just like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I'm, you know, I'm capable of handling myself. I'm capable of taking care of myself if I need to. Like, she just reminded me a lot like Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender, truthfully.
I can see that.
Just less brash than Toph is.
I love that. She was so sweet, and just, you know, like you said, for her to just take a stranger off the street and excuse me, just take a stranger off the street and have to deal with some of their shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was already struggling to feed herself and you know, sell items and different things like that. None of that held her back. Her lifestyle and earning income and having friends, none of that held her back with her disability or anything. But having to clean up after this man.
Oy.
You know, every time he slit his throat, he stabbed himself in the heart, like cleaning that mess. After the first time, you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go. Like, there is no freaking way. There is no freaking way that I would be okay with that.
I don't know. That was really funny though, when she kind of just like walked in and she realized there was blood everywhere, and she's like, oh man, again. Come on.
Yeah.
The last time it took me all night to clean up this stuff, and it's still I can still tell there's stains everywhere.
And I when I read it the first time, I was so confused on the level of blindness, because it seemed like some aspects she was able to see, you know, hues or, you know, images and different things like that. Like, she wasn't 100%. I mean, she was definitely blind. But then she would describe things so vividly that I'm like, but how? So it's not until we know that she is, you know, a demon that, you know, I understood like, oh well, okay. That's why she can see her artwork. That's why she can see these certain things, and things are more vivid than others. And so,
Yeah.
like, how did you describe the colors and the way that looked? And I'm like, houseway. I get you could see like a silhouette of someone, or just you can see a silhouette of an item or whatever the case may be. But yeah, some of the things she was like so vivid on. I'm like, houseway. But yeah.
Yeah, and then it turns out she's a demon. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it to you. We don't really know what demons can do. We'll go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glad I didn't DNF. I need to know what is going to happen with this baby. No. And it was a nice surprise. I have a feeling we aren't going to really know about the baby until like the middle of the next book. They're a continuation, but don't follow ABC and LMN, but XY, ZYX, and FHG.
Yes.
You're making my brain hurt, Elise. Stop it. No, like I 100% agree, because from what we've seen already is that there's mentions of things that happened previously. I would expect that this next book's not going to be so focused on the baby, but maybe either their family, or like something's going to happen that's going to be caused by something that happened to her. I don't even know if it's a her. Is it a her?
Mm-hmm.
It is? Okay, I couldn't remember if they said it or not.
They said it's her daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, so it could be stuff that happens to the daughter's family years down the line. Like, you never know.
It's I will say that there's okay, so we have Nahado, we have Etempus, we have what's the other god? The kid.
Sia?
Sia.
Yeah.
The third book is heavy on Sia.
That's what I did. I read. It was something that was going to be really involved with him, because something about like he gets roped into something, I guess. I don't know the whole story. I just know he gets roped into something.
I don't know. I think yeah, there's a lot that gets unraveled in the third book, but it is heavy on the god's children, and then Sia. Very heavy focus on Sia. And he's so cute because he's so young, but he's so old. Uh-huh. So, but I cried in the third book, and you guys will know why. But because I again, one thing about NK is like I felt with Shiny, even though he didn't talk most of the book, I really felt his struggles. Like, I really enjoyed reading about how this evil person got knocked down to the bottom of the barrel and was like, you are stripped of nothing. You cannot have anything. And I really enjoyed just the gods themselves, and learning about their transformations, learning about, with the Tempest, like, you will live a life of pain and you can only do for others. And the character building, NK does really, really great with making you fall in love with these characters. And so with the third book, I end up crying because like you're feeling like you're losing them. And that's the only thing that I would say. But it is heavy on Sia. There are some things that people come back in the third book. You'll see all of the gods together. I believe that the child is mentioned. She is.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't get a lot of it. So
yeah. Okay.
I wish NK would give us that, but she's her writing, it's like she'll take it from you, right? And like just like the first book, we should be following that whole family and like continue on. No, she just like dropped us under the cliff of these characters and created a whole different storyline. And so it's very similar with the third book. Like, you think you're gonna merge into this same path of what we just read. No, because just like the first book, we did not do that. We did not follow that same storyline. It is a completely separate storyline with the gods' children and the gods, and so yeah.
Yeah.
So.
You're a nurse.
Right, as she's sitting there gagging.
Yeah. Probably won't know about the baby until the last 10 chapters. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Love him. Yes. We don't go around sniffing blood. We try very hard to keep the blood inside the body, as you should. Sometimes taking somebody else's and transferring it into that person, but keeping
It's
it
all in
all.
the bag, so it should
Yeah,
never touch the air.
yeah.
Blood should never really touch the air, but yes, transfusion should stay in the bag and go from a bag to a body.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a good point, Jira.
He's my favorite character. Still struggling with losing Vin. I know. I still struggle with that all the time.
I just love that you're doing this because NK is like, oh, she's the queen of just for me because she's so effective with writing, making you fall in love, making you feel angry and love and like sad and happy and excited and just like in this world. And then she snatches it away and then she drops you off a cliff and then she's like, I'm not gonna give you these Easter eggs. You gotta go find them for yourself. And
Mhm.
so yeah, there's a lot of things that I was like, what is the point of this? And sure enough, it makes sense at the end. It
Mhm.
really does.
I do
Her and
appreciate that.
Brandon, I'm like, come on, stop it with the end of the book. Like stuff. Come on, just yeah.
Give me something more. Like, what's
Give
going
me more.
on?
Give me
No,
more.
I really appreciate the fact that this is more of a companion because I think for me personally, when reading the first book, I was very, like I said, very much lost throughout part of it. So I think if the second book had been more like that first one, where it wasn't a ton of action and it was a lot more lore building, I probably would not have enjoyed this as much. But I think that with book two having been more plot based in terms of structure
Yeah.
and sprinkling in these bits of lore and these bits of story as we went and learning little bits and things about the gods and about the way that things are going, that made it more interesting to me because I guess my thing is that I struggle when it's just lore because I feel like I'm going through a history lesson and I love history, but I don't love history like in a monotone voice, and it felt like that was it was monotone to a certain degree for me in book one. But book two, I think, really made me think back on a lot of stuff that happened in book one to make me want to go back and reread it and then be like, oh, that's right. This thing did happen. Oh, that's where this comes in. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I do love about the fact that with NK, especially even with the Broken Earth trilogy, that happened. That was the same for me. Like, I loved book one in the Broken Earth trilogy, but books two and three made me really want to go back to book one again so that I could figure out where the Easter eggs are. And
Yeah.
I think that that is a really skilled talent that she has developed that very few authors have been able to do, especially in more fantasy based work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I like I said, with her and Sanderson, they leave these clues and you have no idea. And you think they're so irrelevant and but they're not. They're really not. Book 2 was more personable. It wasn't necessarily, I mean, with the what are we calling them? Demigod? I don't know. Half gods,
Godlings, that's what they call them in the
godlings.
book.
Yeah, the godlings. With the godlings, we got to see those. I didn't know that was a thing in book 1 until we got to book 2. The relationship that she had with the godling. Oh, when he died. Oh,
Oh, that was sad. Like, that hurt my heart.
oh.
Like, I think it hurt more so because I was kind of excited for that whole thing to continue in the like in a positive way, but at the same time I was like, I kind of was prepared that they weren't going to end up fully getting back together because I feel like this whole immortality thing with him was going to be a real crutch in the whole scope of their relationship. So I was kind of like thinking it wasn't going to happen. And then I was kind of like, oh man, that's not what I wanted.
Look, I put a note in here the first time I read it. It says, girl, shut the fuck up and sleep with your man. Oh,
Yep.
man. Like, I was, yeah.
Well,
But
the scene where they do sleep together, like toward like the beginning of the book, I was like, yes, please, like that, do that.
I was
That's
so
what you
happy
both
for
want.
her. I was just rooting for her. Like, man, get it. You know what I'm saying? And then she was already under attack during that time, finding out that she had the ability to create these escapes, or I don't know, holes, worlds, metaverse. I don't know. She was doing something where people were able to be sucked into it based off her drawings. And so I when that happened and she finally got caught and put into this separate worlds, I was just so upset because I was really rooting for her to just like figure out who she is and unpack that. But then, of course, Shining was there, and then they figured out that her blood was demon blood, and I'm like, okay, what does that even mean?
And then figuring out that Tempest's downfall to humanity is basically the event that then caused her father's death, and that by itself is so heavy.
So heavy.
Like he is ultimately the reason her father is dead, and she was very close with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he could have taught her so many things about what she was if she had the time. And I think that's what really hurt the most for me, was like, because I just can't even imagine, losing somebody in that way, let alone a parent, knowing that, not understanding what happened to them, but then finding out that a person you spent so much time with, built this relationship with, is ultimately the reason why they're dead, even if indirectly.
Right.
That's hard to swallow.
And even to be able to move on the way she did, like she really was like, she was hurt by it, but it didn't stop her from taking care of Shining or anything, making sure that they both were together and alive. So I just, oh gosh. Yeah. And the whole time, Shiny could have defeated that and had a way. It took them to really struggle. And I know that his powers are not released until somebody is needed. But come on, like, you didn't have strength? Like, are you really a weak man? Like, I'm not. I was so mad about that, because it's like, you couldn't beat them up or something? Like, come on. Yeah. And the way that he killed the person, I don't even remember his name, Lord have mercy. The way that he killed him was just like, leave this body. Like, or something so simple. And I'm like, that's all it took. That's all it took.
Men. God, men, at least.
Come on, she over here hurting her arm, broke her arm, and all different types of things. Like, drained of blood.
Which, that whole thing, like, we'll get into that in a minute. The whole blood thing, because that was interesting. We spike the bag and attach a filter if we need to. Very little blood ends up outside the delivery system. If you like, I could tell you how other body fluids smell. No thanks. No thank you. Reminisce off the interwebs. I won't be able to find your future husband if this day's out in the universe. Yep. Yeah, I think, Elyse's, you're right. It really, it's the full punishment, like straight up. Like, that, everything he had as a god, like, it didn't give him much to go with. And it also added on a little extra, because the part of the punishment too was that he has to self-mutilate. So that's fun.
God. Which is cringy for anyone that has those type of triggers, do not recommend this book.
Yeah,
You know,
seriously.
it's a trigger, but yeah, killing him, dying, you know, reverses or makes him more alive. I don't know, instead of him living in pain. That's a cruel punishment. But
Hmm.
he fucking deserved it for what he did.
Yeah,
He did. But I'm so glad that he found happiness with her. I'm so glad.
me too. Well,
Oh,
and then
what was it? It was Vin. Wasn't it Vin who ate people, right? And no, what's the girl that
no.
ate the godling that ate people?
Uh,
She prayed to God.
I
I
don't
read
remember
the
her
movie.
names, but I
I
know
need
who you're talking about. She reminded me of like one of those really creepy like
tall.
grudge kinds of things. Like, oof,
He's like, I want your arm. I was you don't need it anymore.
yeah. What do you need it for? It's just gonna rot.
Right. And then she says something along the lines of like, oh, they're eating us? You should have just said that from the beginning and
Right.
devoured them, like, and killed them. Like, that just, oh, I was just
Blech.
like, eating people's body parts.
Yeah. And Kate has an arm fetish. I was waiting for her injured arm to turn into stone. That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that till just now. Holy crap. I never thought
Yeah.
about that. Who else had it? Was there anyone in Far Sector that had an injured arm? I can't remember now.
Yeah. Just like the Stone Eaters. Yeah. I
Yeah.
completely agree. That
So
just, yeah.
one thing I also wanted to talk about is this fact that, like I said, we were taught, or basically taught in the story, that demon blood is what is able to wear down these godlings. It is the only thing that can be done to where even a mortal human can kill a god.
Mhm.
So, what exactly I feel? So, I kind of want to ask this to the group. So, what do you feel like? Why do you believe that there was even this invention of demons? Because yes, demons are typically a part of a lot of different religious groups. There's beliefs of there being demons and a devil, but what do we even think the demons are in this world that would then cause them to be so volatile to the gods? I feel like there's something more going on here that maybe we still need to know about in book 3. Oh yeah, one of the green guys. That's right. Thank you, Elises. Couldn't remember.
That's a good point. What are demons? Because we know that godlings are children of the gods,
Mm-hmm.
right? They took a human, bang, 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 and then had a godling. But what the fuck is a demon?
Mm-hmm.
God, maybe godlings and godlings having babies, or godlings and gods having babies.
Is it possible that they are considered rogue godlings of some kind, where they're maybe like, would they
The
be
blood.
considered like a tainted or anything? Like, because I know that there's some stories where demons, like for instance, like dark elves. There's the idea that the dark elves are just elves that turned evil, essentially, either through some other means, or they were created in that way, or you've got like um the what is it? Oh, the orcs from like Lord of the Rings, for instance. They were, originally elves that were then basically made into creepy people. Demons are to provide balance. Yeah, and I totally get that. I'm just curious what would be the purpose in having them be the, like, I don't know, like, where do they come from in this world? Are they just a part of the world because of the fact that we have gods, or is there something like actually, like, is there a reason that they're here? Is there something that happened that brought them around? Like, I'm curious to know.
I think they're Can you
Oh,
confirm
just at least as I said, are products of an imbalance. So I don't know.
I mean, it definitely had something to do with the godlings, but their blood, the demons' bloods are different than godlings. So it could be godlings and gods having babies, or godlings and godlings having babies, if that's possible.
Right. Which,
But it does sound like it was possible because dude that she was sleeping with, said, "I wish, I could, have a family with you." I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, "You would be a good mother."
yeah. I'm curious though, because if a god could have babies with humans, why couldn't a godling have babies with humans also? Like, would that actually create a demon? But then what would change it to where their blood would then be volatile? Like, that's what I'm curious about, is how is it that their blood becomes so volatile it can kill them?
Which is why I don't think that it would be a godling with a human, because like how would that create such a drastic potential, change to the blood?
Mm-hmm.
The human's blood, what makes him amplify it? I don't know. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Didn't the first book say they needed to kill off the godlings because they were dangerous? Maybe the demons were descendants of godlings that were dangerous. That was initially my thought, was like they were basically some kind of rogue godling of sorts. But I mean, we don't really know at this point, because yes, in the first book there was talk of the fact that, godlings were going to be thought to be killed off, but more so in this book. Um, I don't know. I'm curious if that's going to be something that's even going to be briefly mentioned in book 3 at all with Sia. Is he going to learn more about those things? Is he going to like see why these things are happening, and like what's going to happen in the 3rd book that's even going to bring that up?
Maybe.
Legit have no clue. Same.
A lot of things get impacted in the 3rd book. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So much to it.
Well,
Yeah.
for me, I gave this.
I think it is impacted. Like, we get to find out.
Ooh,
So
that's exciting. I like that very much.
Sia is very transparent. That's what I love about Sia, is like he's very transparent, and he discloses a lot. We learn a lot from Sia, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna say that it is. I just don't remember.
Well, that's why you're reading it again, so you can remember.
Yeah, I just remember crying because I was so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about a demon coming from a god and a godling having a baby that has too much human blood? Okay. What if that's the possibility? If there is kind of, instead of it being like half and half, is it possible that there are, obviously there's some babies where like if you have like brown hair and a blonde haired person, sometimes you'll just get a random color because of a recessive gene. Is there some kind of a gene that can be determined that would then cause somebody to be more demon-esque? And then if one child gets that, is that then inherited? Because we know that Ori's father must have been some kind of a demon, because he had the same ability as she did. Because he was able to tell her about briefly some of the things that she was able to do. So is this a demon quality? Is it inheritable? Does it stem from having too much human blood and not enough god power, and it's kind of like a weird, again, imbalance?
But there's regular humans, so
Well, right. So I'm wondering if there is like,
I think the godlings and gods having a baby. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, a godlings and gods having a baby, that probably would create something super dangerous. But yeah.
Like it's either like you can't have like either not, or how do I want to say this?
They were
Like,
the gods were sleeping with their children, right? They were sleeping with the godlings.
yeah,
We do know that.
true.
And that's why godlings cannot have babies anymore, or not able to.
If we don't get an answer, we need to contact Jemison. Hey, excuse me, can you please explain this whole thing in detail with like a 5-paragraph essay, please?
She's like, bitch, read the book.
Read it again. Read it 5 more times until you get it. No, like I said, I really enjoyed this a lot more than book 1. I still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but I do like this one a lot more. I think that so far this is the favorite of the trilogy. But we still have one more book to go in this trilogy, and then we get to move on to something completely different. Fair warning, though, too, guys. If you're able to, there is a novella that is, I think, even further down the timeline, or it may be a prequel. I can't quite remember when I researched it initially, but there is a novella that you can decide to read in July if you would like to. Otherwise, we can, use that kind of as like a break month. It's completely up to you guys. I will be reading it myself, but please don't feel like you need to if you don't want to. So I think it's called The Awakened Kingdoms or something like that.
Awakened Kingdoms. It's a sequel novella.
Okay, so yeah,
it's pretty worth reading.
Yeah, I've heard it's also worth reading. So if you would like to do that in July, that's what we're going to be doing. But in June, we're going to be reading book 3, which is The Kingdom of Gods. And Bree, I think with that, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, maybe we get into the synopsis of book 3. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we do?
Nope. I just enjoyed the story. Mm-hmm. I love N.K. Jemisin's and her writing. It just, to me, I really hope that people are enjoying it. It's my favorite series for sure, and it's because once you unpack a lot of it, and the work that you have to put in, this is not a series that you just have to kind of read it and everything is given to you. You definitely have to, tie some things together. And so I really hope that people are enjoying it, but yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think that hold on. Sorry.
Coronavirus.
I choked on my own spit naturally. I always do that. No. So what I was gonna say is, I think that with NK, similar to how I did with Sanderson, there's a lot that I think I want to go back and reread. Like I know I want to go back and reread the Broken Earth trilogy. I know at this point I want to go back and reread the Inheritance trilogy because I just feel like I know I missed a lot of stuff, and I'd like to be able to find those Easter eggs again that I know that I missed.
Yeah.
And I think for both Jemisin and Sanderson, it just really, again, like we said earlier, it talks a lot about the skill that these writers have, where not only do you get enthralled in the world, but you get so enthralled that sometimes you miss details. Those details can really impact the way that the whole connection of the worlds combine.
Mm-hmm.
And they are masters of their craft. There is a reason why Jemisin became so popular with the Broken Earth trilogy, for instance. There's a reason why people really look to her when it comes to science fiction and fantasy. Now, in the later half of the year, we're going to get into a little bit lesser known books of hers, or books that haven't really fared as well. And I wanted to do that specifically so that we could talk a little bit about why is it that these ones don't work as well? Is it because of a change in style? Is it a change in the way that she wants things to be seen? Or what is it that people are missing with these books that, are really, really important? Because I think that there's a lot that can be said about an author that has really good books, but then there's some books where they're like, oh, that's not as good because of this reason. Well, actually, that's what makes these books just as good, just in a very, very different way than the other books they've written that you liked more.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I think that that's going to be really interesting going into the second half of this year, because I know for a fact one book, which is it's that collection of essays that people were very hit or miss on. What about Black Future Month or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a really interesting discussion because I know that that one was very hit or miss for a lot of people. I think we're reading that one in August.
Yeah.
So
that one is short stories, and I personally do not like short stories. But I have, yeah, I don't like short stories. I need to know more.
Mhm.
Like, there needs to be more. Give me more. And I am that person, which is why I can easily binge series. In Black Future Month, every story was really good. It's just, again, too short. So,
yeah.
But
no,
it's a good anthology for sure.
All right. So let me get the page up real quick. All right. So hope everybody can see this.
This is
1 second.
probably the biggest book, isn't it? Like, I want to say that this is the third book is like even bigger than the second one.
Just the paperback is over 600 pages.
It's crazy.
This is a big one, guys. So take your time with this if you need to. It's going to be a minute. So now this is a really, really shortened version of the synopsis. I know that there's more that you can find in terms of the actual story, but says here, for 2,000 years, the Arameri family has ruled the world by enslaving the very gods that created mortal kind. Now the gods are free, and the Arameri's ruthless grip is slipping. Yet they are all that stands between peace and world-spanning, unending war. So, my thought is that shit's gonna hit the fan quick. Because we already know Sia's involved in this one, and he is somehow wrapped up in the middle of it. I don't want to know how yet. I don't want to know why. I just want to follow this poor boy and make sure that he's protected at all costs. Because if somebody's going to hurt my Sia, I'm going to be throwing hands. That's all I got to say.
I think Sia will hurt Sia. I don't know. But there's a reason why N.K. Jemisin has the first book as the Arameri family, and then the second book heavy on godlings. The third book will come together.
Yay.
So.
Good Lord, who have I become? A reader of chunkers. Thank you, Bree, Brandy, and Gabby. You welcome.
Something to slow down your pace because, man.
We gotta catch up with you. Like, come on. We gotta slow you down somehow.
Yes, absolutely. Because how she does it, I have no freaking idea.
This 700 books a year.
I guarantee you she hit 7 this year.
Oh, yeah. I would not be surprised.
Because she was at like 6, I believe, towards the end of last year. Oh, yeah, she'll hit 7.
Mm-hmm. We love you, though, Elises. So, my thoughts, my theories, because we started talking a little bit about theories in terms of what we think is going to be going on. What do we think, besides obviously something to do with hopefully baby Ori, or anything to do with the rest of the gods? What do we think? Bree, you already know stuff, so
I'm not going to say.
Good. I knew you wouldn't, but still. I just got to pick on you. What do we think, or what do we hope at least that we get to see more of? I would personally like to see a little bit more of like Sia's backstory in this, because this is going to be a book more so specifically with him. I want to know a little bit more about him in particular. I feel like I did not get as much as I wanted to in book 1. I just knew that like once I recognized that he was a child god, and that he was much older than he was, but still had those very childlike mannerisms and an attitude. Like, I just wanted to like protect him, and I want to know more about him as an individual.
Yeah. Sia doesn't I think in book 1 we see that Sia doesn't have to be a child.
Mm-hmm.
But it is who he is, right? Like, he prefers that, he has his yellow ball, which is not a ball. But he does not have to be. when he uses his powers, he's not able to remain as a child. And so we see that in book 1, but he's just so cute. He's so cute.
Yeah, he chooses to be a child. I'm just curious as to why, because like I know that there's this idea of like
mother child,
right, and also maybe like a type of regression of sorts. Like I want to know, does he stay in the form of a child because maybe it feels safer? And what would that? Why would that be? Why is it that he feels safer?
That's who he is. Light. We have light, dark, and we have mother child. That's what we have. We have in Tempest is dark. We have Nadado, who is light. We have Girl now, who is the mother.
Jaina, I think.
Figure. Yeah, Nina. We have her, and then and then we have the child. Light, dark, mother, child.
Would there be then? So, I guess light, dark, also good is the idea of good and evil, whatever. Yeah. But I'm curious, what else can she then bring in with Sia that's going to bring in a whole other aspect? Because obviously with Tempest, we've seen that he's not only evil in a lot of ways, but there are some things that really humanize him and make him not as bad of a guy, but still a pretty awful guy. So what is it about Sia that we're going to see that's going to make him a little bit more interesting, maybe more dynamic kind of idea? I'm curious. That'd be fun.
It's a journey.
Oh, I'm sure. It's always a journey. Always is.
It's a Sia's journey, for sure. But you really get to see the nurturing aspect of the mother side, and then the caring side, right? She's like the balancer between the gods, and then with Sia being, a god himself-ish. But this third book, you'll Sia is Sia.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's always in the middle of some shit that he probably shouldn't be in the middle of, just like the first book. And there's definitely going to be some things that pop off between, war and all that, like this synopsis said. But there's a lot of struggles, and again, you're gonna go through those roller coasters of like, fuck you, NK. Like, well, I hope people do, because it is a very kind of sad book. So, towards the end, but yeah,
it's cute like a baby lion until you become its dinner. True though, he is able to be scrappy when he needs to be.
Yeah, even though he perceives to be this child because of how old he is and wise he is, like he's mentally, he's just not, and he'll fuck you up at the end of the day.
Don't mess with him. He's going to finish unraveling all the secrets in order to save the gods, to make sure they're never in this position again. I don't know. I'm just along for the ride. I'd be willing to bet there's that I feel like is where the trajectory of the story is going. Fairly similar, I feel like, to the way the Broken Earth trilogy went, where like obviously we had to change a lot of things to make sure that this didn't happen again, or that things are righted. I feel like that's the way that NK typically wants to write these kind of more epic stories. It's like ultimately there being a more sound conclusion, a way to finalize something, finish something, fix something kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. And even with book 1, when we see the family, the Arameri family, we see the issues from the bat, right? The family are the slaves in the house, or the servants in the house. The family, whether you're half-bloods or whatever, like depending on who you are, either you're honored and raised like this amazing human being with this immaculate room, or you're the one serving them. So that you get to see the Arameri family, and then there's so many issues. Remember those issues in that book. And then again with the godlings and their issues that they have. And then all of that gets put together and wrapped up in a little bow.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a reason why she split off and like, you know, it wasn't necessarily talking about our married families in book 2. And again, I said this before, like Sia is very transparent. He will tell everybody, right? In book 1, we see that he is just spilling the beans, just so girl can be a part and know what's going on. So
Yena just had a message that said, please tell me the entire history of your family and your life story written on her forehead, basically.
Yeah. Yena. I don't know. Should we even call her Yena anymore? She's still Yena, but she's so different. So
yeah, I mean, I know they call her more of like the gray lady at this point, but Yena's the way that like I think most people would recognize her because of the fact that she was in book 1. But yeah, she's more the gray lady now since the ending of 100,000 Kingdoms.
That ending was epic too.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck okay, like
yeah, it is going to end in chaos. I Broken Earth ended in some kind of chaos that somehow righted itself at the same time. It's gonna. There's not going to be anything other than chaos that's going to somehow make its way to being okay. Not to the last 22 pages. Yeah, I will say I feel like that's a pretty common thing. Whereas like the last 20 to 30 pages is really where everything kicks off. Like it's a very steep drop from where the story like builds up, and then it's just like bye.
Yeah, that's typical NK.
Yep,
that's every great writer. I don't know a great writer that doesn't do it. I mean, like so far that I've read, that doesn't give you that last 50 pages like, oh my god, this is what I've been waiting for. But and that will happen, and knowing that, you kind of just have to pick up the clues and hints and just again refer back to book 1, refer back to book 2 in order to understand what they're saying, because there was a lot of those Easter eggs that were left and you don't know what the fuck it was for. Didn't think it was relevant at all until you get to book 3.
Right. It's all coming together. All right, guys. So yeah, obviously I've already said my reading. We all know how Bree feels about these books. But those of you that are still here, please let us know, what did you end up rating book 2? And was it better than how you rated book 1? And other than that, really, I just wanted to thank Bree again for joining me. I know that this is your favorite series by NK. I'm really glad that you could be a part of it. And I just appreciate that you took the time to do so.
Of course.
So you guys, with that, next live show for the Kingdom of Gods is going to be the first Saturday of July, which is July 1st. That is a week before my birthday. I do not know whether or not I'm going to be posting much that week because I'm
was the end of the month. I thought your birthday was the end of July.
Nope, July 8th.
I don't know why I thought it was the 20th. Oh, okay. Yep. I'm going to write it down. I have a list of everybody's birthdays.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, July 1st at 8 p.m. We are Eastern Standard Time, just like tonight and every other live show. We will be doing the live show for the Kingdom of Gods. Make sure that, you guys obviously get it done before then, but I'm really excited. I feel like this is going to be interesting. I think that this one, depending on how the way the story is structured, I think for me, it's going to either be, again, a 4 or 5 stars, because I really like the content of N.K. Jemisin's work. I like the stories themselves. It's sometimes for me the way that the book is structured that I'm not as much of a fan of. And sometimes I feel like there's points where I get really lost, and that's okay, because that would be the same even if it was, any other author. I'd still feel that way. But for me, I think that she's an amazing author and definitely deserves all the flowers. Like, if I ever got the chance to meet her, you'd best believe I'd be buying every box set and having her sign every single one of them dang books. And I'd gladly spend the money on it.
And can I say before we wrap
Yeah.
up, how the hell? Because if this was written by any other author, and let's say what's that girl's name? R.F. Kwong, right?
Mhm.
It would have, if this series was written by any other author, it would have so many different types of special editions, this and special edition that. And she was like, fuck no.
Mhm.
Give them the book. Put it, if you want to put it in the tome, put it in the tome, but do not put it in a special edition. You can't find this shit nowhere other than individual books and this. And so I just, again, that just shows you like how much control she has over her art. Where if she wanted to do a special edition with all of these sprayed edges and all these other things, she certainly could have, but she doesn't.
I think that it probably for her is more looking at the quality of the content on the inside, not just a pretty cover.
Anything. She said in a masterclass she doesn't want anything to deter people from anything crazy going on with the outside of the books or the inside of the books to deter people from the masterness, I would say, but like just the art and the content within. And so the spread edges is cool. Yeah, the hardbacks and this special edition and that special edition, but she was like, why spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on that? Give them the content. The book is great as it is. And I just love that she has the ability to just like have control of her art, of her her work of art, because this really is something that to me I feel is just a great book and great series. But if with all of her awards that she's winning off of these series between the 5th season and the Inheritance trilogy, you would think she would have tons and tons of special editions, but she was literally like, no. And she remains in control over her books, and I just love that. I really do.
That's just amazing for her, not only as a female author that could easily get pressured into that kind of thing and then sign away the rights for her book to be able to then do all these things with it in the future. Like I highly doubt she would ever do any kind of an adaptation. Especially if she was not going to be given any kind of creative direction with it, because that is her baby. If she's not willing to do a special edition of her book, there's no way in hell anybody is going to be able to buy her rights off of her to make these into any kind of adaptation. There's no way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, more power to her, because not everything needs to be an adaptation, but at the same time, like, authors don't get a lot of real good publicity sometimes after an adaptation is done. Sometimes they're so bad that people don't even want to go read the books. And sometimes it's not even so much that like the story's done poorly. It's just the way that it was adapted was not good, because whoever decided to make it wasn't the right person for it.
Yeah. It would be great in a series, though.
It would.
And at least yes, there was a I don't know if it was this or the 5th season. There was a special edition. It was an independent UK publisher or printing press that did it, but that thing was sold out so fast, and they weren't even that good. They weren't even that good. I personally, I think, but I don't know if it was the Inheritance trilogy. Either way, if it was HarperCollins or Penguin Teen, or not Penguin Teen, but Random House that published this book, they would have took it and blew it up and made the most profit off of it as possible, which was not necessarily a bad thing. But again, the book itself, the book speaks for itself. So, it is a great book without the fanciness and bells and whistles. So I appreciate her as just a writer, and because she's just amazing. She really
Mm.
is.
Yeah, she really is. Rated book 1 5 stars. This one was a 3 stars, but I might change it on reread. Yeah, honestly, my ratings are not necessarily like stuck in mud and or stone forever or cement. Like it's very likely they will change because I am expecting with NK and with Brandon Sanderson also in the same idea that when I go back and reread these, my mind's going to change. I'm going to find all kinds of new details. You know, it's the same thing when like you watch a movie so many times because it's your favorite, but then sometimes when you're really paying attention, you notice little things that you're like, oh my God, that person was drinking a coffee in the background and was such a sore thumb. How did nobody notice that prior? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you don't notice those things until you've seen it so many times that you start to find little details like that. So I'm willing to bet that that'd be the case with me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Can't rate her books because her wrap ups are 5 stars. Does that make the whole book 5 stars? Feel like I want it more after finishing her books, but not while I'm reading the main body. Yeah, I would say, I mean, like, honestly, when it comes to me with rating, I rate my overall experience of it from structure, from the way the story went itself. Writing style is kind of hit or miss. Like, either I like the writing style or I don't. More often than not, I do. But really, the biggest things for me are, does the plot develop in a way that I think is, it makes sense, that, logically, seems to do well for the type of story it is? And is the structure good? Like, does it seem like it's good pace? That kind of thing. Those are like my two big things I look for.
For me, I rate my books on how it made me feel, on top of like, was it enjoyable? Did
Mm-hmm.
I did I have a fun time with the book? 5 stars are automatic. Like, I could reread this. Like, this was giving me what I needed to give.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did I have to wait for the ending for it to give me what I needed? Yes. But again, book 1 and 2 come together. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why you follow Shiny's, journey of being a human. There's a reason for all of this. And just keep in mind, you see, NK's writing, that things like, are not necessarily, you don't know why you're following this journey and what the point is, but it comes together, and it's going to come together, and it's going to, but for me, I have to feel something. I have to feel the anger, the sadness, the
Mm-hmm.
love, the happiness, the joy. And then NK, I know for a fact NK is going to snatch it from me. Like, it's just how, she writes. And she'll make you fall in love with every last one of her characters, and then she'd be like, psych, fuck you.
Yeah.
You die, you die, you die. And we see that in the fifth season. Like, that's just what it was. Like,
Yep.
my favorite character, like, was killed off, and I'm like, what the fuck?
And then sometimes it's, oh, you're gonna die. Oh, we're gonna bring you back for a little bit, and you're dead again.
And you're dead again. Psych.
Yep.
And so that is a skill set that really shows how great NK is. Like, she's, for me, is amazing. And if you rate this on surface level, yeah, it could easily be a 3-star, a 2-star. Like, you wasted my time till the end of the book, but that's not NK. You can't rate her on surface level because she doesn't write like that. And so,
Yeah.
but hey.
No, and you're 100% right. Like part of what I rate too is emotional level, but a lot of times I rate on emotional level based on how I feel the plot is going. Like, if I not
Right.
only am I connected
Yeah.
to characters, but if I feel that the plot is going in a way that
I
makes sense
need
for the
the plot.
character, makes sense for the world, that kind of thing, I then also become even more emotionally invested because I'm like, okay, I want this to go a certain way. Please tell me it goes a certain way. It makes me happy. Even if I'm screaming, even if I'm bawling, if I have any super strong emotion out of something, more than likely it's a 5-star for me, because whether or not, the structure is for everybody, it's for me. I loved it enough that throughout the entirety of it, I was emotionally there. Like that, I guess maybe that takes more precedence, maybe is the emotional part, and then structure. And then yeah, and then more like maybe plot within that as well. But
yes, I'm very plot driven, like very plot driven.
Like, I like my lore, I like the history of things, but I don't want to be in a really boring history class with, you know, a dusty old white man sitting at the front with like a big like white mustache, you know, and just crumbs in it kind of thing. Like that, I don't want that.
Oh. Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Well, it's going to be a great time. I'm going to take notes this time. I said, I'm going to take notes this time. I really just devoured the book and just read it in a day, and it was just so good.
Yeah. I do think you're right, Elises. I don't remember, though, if it was the Inheritance trilogy or if it was the Broken Earth, but I do feel like I recall seeing something that it was optioned, but it never went through. And I wonder if I think that was because it was around, like, it was during COVID, obviously, but I can't remember which one it was. I don't remember. Wasn't a special edition crazy expensive also?
Hella expensive, like $600. That's what I'm saying. It was a private printing press. It was a printing press company that was making them. And, you know, it was the first ever special edition that NK was doing at all. And yeah, it was hella expensive. Hella.
Oh boy.
It wasn't even all that. Like, it wasn't, yeah.
Very stingy with my 5 stars. Has to grab my attention from the first few chapters to the end. Plus, it needs to be on my mind while I'm reading and after I've read it. I'm very stingy, and that's fair. You know, that's exactly you know what we're describing. If you're not emotionally involved in it from beginning to end in any way, if it doesn't grab your attention, keeps you on the edge of your seat, then don't give it a 5-star. Like, don't let us sway you. If this is the way that you feel, this is the way that you feel.
Yeah,
more power to you.
Please don't let me persuade you to change or think otherwise, because I like what I like, you like what you like, and we rate differently. Like,
the way you said that reminded me of the Yukon Cornelius from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You eat what you like, and I eat what I like. Well, it's been a week. I've had a very good emotional week, but very emotional at work, and I'm tired. It's been a long 4-day week for me.
Yeah.
Why does the white man need to be dusty? Because every history teacher that I see,
they actually they don't use lotion.
They don't, and they're
crusty.
They've got the big noses that have like broken capillaries in them. They've got big bushy eyebrows to match their mustaches. Like, they're crusty, dusty, musty. Like,
I cannot with you.
I'm stingy too, but I've already given 25 5-stars this year alone. My 4 stars are usually 5 stars. 25 out of how many again?
Out of 1,000. 500 of them. That's
a low statistic there, Elises. Like, come on.
That's a very, very low. I was like 1% of your books.
Well, I'm glad I can make you guys giggle. That's all I care about. So, anyway, thank you guys all so much. Oh, Alicia says, not telling. Of course not.
Exactly, because she hit 500 already. She read like over 100 books in January. Like, I know.
And then I think, did she hit that? Like 100 books in April with 30 and 30 for manga?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's true. That was true. Yeah, she did.
Lises, you need to stop. Let the rest of us catch up. Not even close.
Not even close means she's at 300. Minimum.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Bree, thank you so much again for joining me. I absolutely love the fact that you can share your thoughts on this, especially with it being a reread for you, and being able to really expand on some thoughts in terms of like having read the entire series previously, how some things tie in with each other. And I think that that really helps with a lot of us like me who sometimes miss some details that are really, really important. So, but like I said, guys, live show for the Kingdom of Gods is Saturday, July 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we will be basically just kind of hanging out here. I'll be floating around probably on sprints every now and then. You know, you guys, if you don't follow Bree, which I know the people that are here do, but anyone that's kind of lurking and doesn't already follow Bree, go check her out. She's super cool. And yeah. Well, you're cool all the time to me. So.
That's because you ain't got cussed out yet. You're not.
I've been cussed out
because
once.
we're friends, but some of the people in the comments, okay, don't come over to my comment section and plum fool, okay? You know.
It's true. I've been cussed out by you before, though, so.
What?
A long time ago, but yes.
Listen, I'm such a shitty person. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. It was with love, but you cussed me out. You did.
I love you.
I love you too. All right, guys. That is it for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you some other time. I don't know when, but some other time. Bye.